Hey, quick question for all you people posting about Charlie Kirk. Do you know who he was? Do you know what he stood for? Do you know anything about him? Or is this maybe the first-ish time you're hearing about him because he was murdered yesterday? I'm not saying that anybody deserves to die at the hands of gun violence, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't feel bad for his wife and 2 kids, and I'm not saying that we should be celebrating his death, but to all of you people, especially people that identify as left-wing, liberal, Democrats, do you know who you are posting in solidarity with?
Let's talk about how predictable this all is. The 24 to 48 hours after the Charlie Kirk situation looked a lot like many of us predicted it would. It was a wave of right-wing outrage from average citizens through to our president. They were seething with hatred and blaming far-left violence. And while they were pointing the finger, they were inciting violence themselves. Neo-Nazis have been using this as a recruitment opportunity. People in the government are using it as a moment to declare war. People have been blaming trans immigrants. All of this before we had any idea who the shooter was.
Stochastic terrorism. If people are telling you Charlie Kirk never hurt anyone, the word you're looking for is stochastic terrorism. Stochastic terrorism is when public figures use mass communication to incite violence against specific groups while maintaining plausible deniability. You demonize and dehumanize a group of people. You paint them as an existential threat. You use inflammatory, violent language. Then when someone acts on that rhetoric with actual violence, you get to step back and say, I never told anyone to do that.
I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but saying that Black people were better off under slavery and Jim Crow because they committed less crimes is not a political opinion.
I actually want to say something about this. If you're gonna spread hateful shit and you're gonna target marginalized groups of people, don't be all, oh my god, I've been shot. I won't get shot because I don't do that. I don't have to worry about that. I don't feel bad for him. I don't feel bad for his wife. I feel bad for his daughter. He did that to himself.
They say empathy is the last thing we have left in a broken society. But what happens when empathy runs dry? When someone who spent their life mocking pain, denying suffering, and celebrating the destruction of others becomes the one who suffers. The death of Charlie Kirk has become one of the most polarizing conversations in America right now, and not for the reasons you might think. Some are mourning, some are silent, and many are saying it's karma. This isn't just about Charlie Kirk. It's about America's relationship with violence, white supremacy, and the selective way empathy is given or denied.
I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but saying that Black people were better off under slavery and Jim Crow because they committed less crimes is not a political opinion. Saying that Black women don't have equal cognitive functioning to white people, and if they are in high up positions, that must mean that they took a white person's slot, is not a political opinion. Believing that Black men who die because of police violence deserved it is not a political opinion. Saying that you don't believe 1 in 5 women are actually SA'd, so then 1 in 5 women must be lying, is not a political opinion. That is white supremacy and misogyny. And white supremacy and misogyny aren't political opinions. They're political violence.
Stochastic terrorism. If people are telling you Charlie Kirk never hurt anyone, the word you're looking for is stochastic terrorism. Stochastic terrorism is when public figures use mass communication to incite violence against specific groups while maintaining plausible deniability. You demonize and dehumanize a group of people. You paint them as an existential threat. You use inflammatory, violent language. Then when someone acts on that rhetoric with actual violence, you get to step back and say, I never told anyone to do that. It's terrorism by statistical probability. You're not directing specific people to commit specific acts. You're just broadcasting hatred to millions, knowing statistically someone's going to act on it. And it works. Misogyny is on the rise along with calls to remove women's rights. This correlates with rises in domestic violence and harassment. Studies show anti-LGBTQ rhetoric directly correlates to increased violence against queer people. When you have a platform with millions of followers and you consistently tell them that certain groups of people are an abomination or threats to children in society, some percentage of those followers will take action. The insidious part is when violence happened, Kirk got to step back and say, I didn't hurt anyone. But that's not how stochastic terrorism works. You don't need to give explicit instructions when you've spent years painting a target on people's backs. He built his career on hatred disguised as Christianity, violence disguised as patriotism, and eliminationist rhetoric disguised as political discourse. So don't let anyone gaslight you into thinking his words were harmless. Words have impact, platforms have responsibilities, and hatred disguised as righteousness is still hatred.
Charlie Kirk wasn't just a conservative commentator. He was a symbol of a movement that thrived on division. His entire platform was built on mocking those who didn't look like him, love like him, or think like him. He famously said he didn't trust black pilots. He mocked George Floyd's death. He minimized slavery by suggesting black people were better off back then. He attacked women, the LGBTQ+ community, immigrants, all while branding himself as a defender of American values. But here's the hard truth. Those values weren't for everyone. They were for white America. For years, people begged the world to see the danger of his rhetoric. They called it stochastic terrorism, planting seeds of violence through words, even if he never pulled a trigger himself.
Do you think your life should be in danger for having an opinion?
If it targets marginalized groups of people, yes, you are spreading hateful speech.
The free speech argument, as always, has reared its head again, right? And there's this whole conversation about whether or not you can speak without risking violence. I saw this exchange between Ben Shapiro and Bill Maher on his show that I kind of wish I'd been in the room for.
And we do have a serious problem in this country with people who believe that violence is the proper response to speech. And that does skew young. I mean, what the polls tend to show is that of Gen Z, only 58% of Gen Z believes that there is no excuse for violence in response to speech, meaning that 42% believe that there are some times that violence ought to be a response to speech, which is deeply terrifying.
It's so interesting to me that he read that statistic without sort of looking internally at why that might have happened and whether or not he was responsible for it. It dawned on me watching this that every generation ends up somewhat like rejecting the phrases and codes that the previous ones sort of inherited and tried to make them inherit too. And I think they always think it's because those generations are rebelling, and I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's our fault. Maybe previous generations failed those codes, abused them, didn't maintain them properly. We'll start with a soft one, right? The customer is always right. You know, when I heard that, yeah, it sounded good. Sounded good once upon a time. And then I think a generation that actually ended up working in retail and hospitality came along and said, actually, no, the customer's a bit of a dickhead. And then you can take a heavier one. Innocent until proven guilty. Again, I'm a millennial. I still sort of cling to that. My generation kind of clings to that. But it's become much harder, particularly for younger people, particularly for women, and particularly for people of colour. We've seen sexual assault cases collapse despite mountains of evidence. We've seen the police essentially kill people and walk free, whilst commentators like Ben Shapiro are trying to insist that we're not seeing exactly what we're seeing. They still refute what happened to George Floyd. And when that happens over and over again, why should we be surprised when people start believing in that phrase? Why should we be surprised when generations come through and they think it's more important to lean on the court of public opinion rather than the courts who aren't actually delivering justice? And maybe the exact same thing is happening with freedom of speech and with speech in general. I grew up and it still lives in me. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, right? Like, that instinct is still in me to agree with it. But I think we should be honest about this. If we let speech run unchecked for decades, if we pretend words have no consequences until suddenly they did, why are we surprised when people start acting out? Look at Charlie Kirk. He spent years saying things that were extremely racist, extremely divisive, and there's evidence that it was all a performance, that it wasn't even really a belief. I'm sure you've seen those videos of him saying Beyonce's music is awful and disgusting. And there's that video that's viral on here about him saying we need to stop listening to rap music, it's degenerate. And yet, there are videos of him happily singing along to, I believe, R. Kelly's Ignition, and he's rapping to Kanye West with Candace Owens. You don't know the lyrics of songs unless you listen to them quite a few times. There's no principle in what he's saying. That's all a performance. It's a lie, too. It's a dog whistle. It's a subtle one compared to the other things he'd said. And even furthermore, like, these rules about freedom of speech are not only being abused, they're being applied inconsistently. When a man broke into Nancy Pelosi's home, attacked her with a hammer, left him with a fractured skull that needed surgery, did Charlie Kirk say, hold on, we have to pray for his family. That's a father, that's a husband, that's a son. No, he said this.
By the way, if some if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out.
And yet Charlie was still treated like a mainstream figure, with no accountability. His words even got him the ear of a president who also said horrific things and still rose to one of the most powerful positions in the world. So while my bones still believe the rhyme of sticks and stones, I can't be shocked that a generation has grown up saying, maybe words do justify a reaction. Again, I'm not saying that. I'm not sitting here thinking that violence is the answer. I'm saying, why are we surprised? We didn't protect the principles, we abused them. And so, of course, we're going to see dark things. But I don't know if it's because of a generation trying to break the system, or if it's them falling through the cracks of the one that we failed to maintain.
I won't let anybody distort reality and try to paint this picture that Charlie Kirk was this God-fearing family man who just wanted to go to college campuses and debate. Roll the fucking tape! Do you guys know what an opinion is? An opinion goes something like this. Yeah, I prefer Pepsi over Sprite. Not, if I get on a plane and I see a black pilot, I'm going to wonder if they're qualified. That's racist. The guy didn't believe in empathy. The guy was transphobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, and then says he loves Jesus. What fucking Bible are you reading, motherfucker? This is literally the epitome of fuck around and find out. You can't just run around the entire world spreading the most vile shit ever. Thousands of kids and women just being fucking deleted off the map in fucking Palestine. And this guy's cheering it on. And then he gets domed and I'm supposed to cry for the motherfucker? What the fuck are we talking about?
Now, here's where the conversation takes a strange turn. It isn't just people of color who are refusing empathy in the wake of his death. It's white people too. Many of them are saying what he did to others came back around to him. They're pointing out the hypocrisy. Charlie Kirk built his career dehumanizing entire communities, so why should those same communities, or even white Americans outside his circle of influence, mourn him? White supremacy, after all, doesn't have empathy for gun violence when it impacts people of color. It doesn't care when a black child is killed by police, when a migrant family is torn apart, when a queer teen takes their own life. And so the cycle turns. Empathy is withheld, not because death isn't tragic, but because some deaths are seen as inevitable results of the lives people choose to lead.
Let's talk about how predictable this all is. The 24 to 48 hours after the Charlie Kirk situation looked a lot like many of us predicted it would. It was a wave of right-wing outrage from average citizens through to our president. They were seething with hatred and blaming far-left violence. And while they were pointing the finger, they were inciting violence themselves. Neo-Nazis have been using this as a recruitment opportunity. People in the government are using it as a moment to declare war. People have been blaming trans immigrants. All of this before we had any idea who the shooter was. Turns out the shooter is a cis white guy from a MAGA family. Statistically, that checks out. And in a twist of irony, it's being reported that he might be further right than Charlie himself. Sidetrack, I find myself having to learn about an entire wing of right-wing infighting and culture that I never knew existed. Apparently there's something called groypers, so Nick Fuentes' kind of little army. They've spent years hating Kirk for not being far right enough. People are claiming that he's part of that movement. I don't think it's been confirmed yet. But whether it's true or not, the fact that I have to Google what is a groyper in the aftermath of somebody being shot says it all. Factions are eating themselves alive, but still blaming the left while they do it. In a rational world, Republican leaders would have paused, tried to calm people, tried to lower the temperature of the country, right? Right? Nope. They've intentionally missed every single opportunity to unite people or calm the country down. Instead, leftist creators are being doxxed and threatened. Right-wing extremist groups are mobilizing. Trump went on air on Fox News and said he literally couldn't care less about uniting the country and doubled down that left-wing violence is somehow worse than right-wing violence. Is the left-wing violence in the room with us? Stephen Miller, even after knowing who the shooter was, claimed that Kirk's last message to him was about dismantling radical left organization, and he vowed to carry that out. And Kirk's wife, her grief is real. She's allowed to feel however she feels. But the way her statement has been weaponized, kind of delivered as a threat, is very telling. One way or another, she's being turned into another tool for incitement. Just like with the Orange Menace's shooter, the call is coming from inside the house. But the MAGA machine does not care, because cult logic is Orwellian, right? Reject the evidence of your eyes and ears and believe only what the party tells you. This is exactly what many of us warned about. Kirk is being used as a martyr, not for healing, not for unity, not as a moment to reflect. It's being used to clamp down on our civil liberties and stoke division. They are deliberately stoking the tensions that have been simmering since Trump's inauguration and every attack on our rights since then. This is what they wanted. Tragedy is absolutely fuel for their strategy. Unless we see it clearly, they're going to keep consolidating power under the guise of protecting us. Let me know if you want part 2 where we can talk about what we do about all of this.
Hey, quick question for all you people posting about Charlie Kirk. Do you know who he was? Do you know what he stood for? Do you know anything about him, or is this maybe the first-ish time you're hearing about him because he was murdered yesterday? I'm not saying that anybody deserves to die at the hands of gun violence, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't feel bad for his wife and 2 kids, and I'm not saying that we should be celebrating his death, but to all of you people, especially people that identify as left-wing, liberal, Democrats, do you know who you are posting in solidarity with? Let's run through some quick facts about him, and if you still feel so inclined to post in solidarity with him and his family, so be it. Do you feel bad about his 2 children growing up without a father? Sure, that's valid. Have you seen the video of him justifying pedophilia? Why don't you go search that up on TikTok, YouTube? Then get back to me. What about the fact that he once said he was so anti-abortion that if his 10-year-old was raped, that baby would be delivered? Did you know that he was openly homophobic? Like, very intensely? He said that transgender and gender fluidity were lies used to hurt people and abuse children, and that LGBTQ efforts were to corrupt your kids. Did you know that he was incredibly anti-DEI and would frequently disparage prominent Black people as their success coming from affirmative action instead of actual merit? Did you know that at the start of the Black Lives Matter movement, he referred to George Floyd as a scumbag? Did you know that he once referred to the Civil Rights Act as a huge mistake and that it created a permanent bureaucracy to promote DEI? Did you know that he once compared Muhammad to Jeffrey Epstein? Did you know that he thought young women should focus on marriage and having children over their careers and viewed their role as being fruitful and multiplying? Did you know that he once said women should submit to their husbands? Did you know that he once said Israel starving the Palestinians in Gaza was propaganda? And in a tragic irony, did you know that he said gun deaths were an acceptable price to pay for gun ownership rights? So yeah, I don't think people should die at the hands of gun violence, which is why I believe in gun reform. And if you still feel so inclined to post about him and how bad you feel for his family, that's totally fine. I would love to see you also post about the other school shootings and acts of gun violence, one of which happened at the same fucking time that he was murdered yesterday. And I would also love to see you posting about the genocide that's happening in Gaza, because we've been watching people, especially children, get bombed, starved, and shot on social media for fucking years, and I haven't seen a majority of you post about any of it. It shouldn't take a conservative white man being shot and murdered for you to give a shit all of a sudden.
I remember the first time I heard Charlie Kirk say he didn't trust Black pilots. I thought about my uncle, a man who spent years training, flying, proving himself in a world where he always had to work twice as hard just to be seen as competent. Imagine dedicating your life to something only to have your existence reduced to a punchline by someone with a microphone. And it wasn't just him. Every woman who's been told they're less, every queer person told they're unnatural, every Black person told their pain isn't real, they carried the weight of Charlie Kirk's words. Words that weren't just offensive, but dangerous. Because when someone with power normalizes hatred, others take it as permission to act. That's why so many people call what he did stochastic terrorism. And it's why his death feels, for some, like a closing of a cruel chapter.
Now that the dust is kind of settling a bit on the Charlie Kirk thing, and like I've slept on it and digested it, the shit, I mean, we knew it was going to be like ridiculous, but the shit people are saying. Stephen Colbert said, "I hope it's obvious to everyone in America that political violence does not solve any of our political differences. Political violence only leads to more political violence. And I pray with all my heart that this is the aberrant action of a madman and not a sign of things to come." And this is why I fucking hate the whole like empathy, morality discussion of all of this, because it makes no fucking sense. All it does is separate what actually happened from why it happened. I hope these are the actions of a crazy madman and not a sign of things to come. Of course it's a sign of things to come. This has been coming. Like, what do you mean? This is the world that they've been building. This is what I fucking hate. People act like Jimmy Kimmel came out and said something as well that was like, for once, can we all just accept that a human being being shot is a bad thing or whatever? I'm like, we've been saying that. Like, I fucking hate this whole like condemn the violence. Same thing with is obviously like Palestine, and people are like, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? Again, not a conversation about who deserves or doesn't deserve or the level of violence. I don't care about having that discussion. I think it's fucking irrelevant. What I think is relevant is the fact that Charlie Kirk died because of Charlie Kirk. And not because he pissed someone off and they killed him. I mean, Charlie Kirk there's that video going around of him literally saying people need to die to gun violence every year in order to protect the Second Amendment or whatever. He said that. That is the world he fought for. That's the world he got. Political violence only begets more political violence. Like, yeah, no shit. This is a result of that. This didn't fucking come out of nowhere. I fucking hate when people act like all of a sudden it's like, again, all of a sudden we grow empathy as if this is the first time and only time this has ever happened, and this happened in a vacuum. Like everyone's been saying, there was a mass shooting at the same time. There was a mass shooting at the same time Charlie Kirk got shot. Where's the call for empathy for them? Where's all this like, guys, violence is actually really bad? Where's Stephen Colbert making fucking statements on that? Where's Jimmy Kimmel making statements on that? It only matters when it's a rich white guy. When it's a rich white guy that dies, then it's all empathy is the fucking end all be all of everything, and we need to condemn all the violence in the world. Always condemn the violence as if it happens in a vacuum and then nothing changes, and then we act surprised when it happens again. And it's fucking exhausting. And like, yeah, this is going to continue to happen. It will continue to happen, and it will get worse. It reminds me of when Liam Payne, obviously it's a very different situation, but when Liam Payne died last year, I can't remember when he died, I remember seeing so many people sharing posts of like Liam Payne's death and like RIP Liam Payne and stuff. Like people I know personally, and it was on everyone's stories and everyone's posting it. People who don't even give a fuck about One Direction, people who don't care about Liam Payne like that. And these are people who'd never posted a single thing on Palestine or any other issue in the world. And I remember people being like, oh, well, it's still sad that he died. I'm like, yeah, but you don't know him any more than you know these innocent kids in Gaza. But you've never shared a post on, like, it really is, it's just rich white guy dies, now we need to practice empathy. Like, fucking hell.
Oh my God, did you hear Charlie Kirk passed away? He's actually gone. I am so sorry to hear that. I don't know who he is. Is he a family member of yours, or a politician, or a military service member, or a first responder? No, but he's a hero. Just look him up and then you're gonna see what he's about. Again, I am so sorry. Let me look him up.
You're comparing abortion to the Holocaust.
Absolutely I am. In fact, it's worse. It's worse.
I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights.
I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that it does a lot of damage. But it's so materially insane to think that 1 in 5 American women will be raped in their life.
It is, I agree.
No, meaning that they're lying about being raped, that they're lying about being sexually assaulted. Crime, like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. If I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman, I wonder, is she there because of her excellence, or is she there because of affirmative action? But now when it's like, wait, hold on a second. You're going to remove my appendix and you're a black lesbian. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. They want to replace white Anglo-Saxon Christian Protestants with Mexican Nicaraguans, with El Salvadorians. Native-born Americans, you better buy weapons, everybody. Have a lot of guns at your disposal. I would never leave your home without a weapon. No, I think Hondurans, Mexicans, Nicaraguans, El Salvadorians, Panamanians, Venezuelans, Chileans, they should all go home. Oh, really?
Are you trying to say that blacks thrive under subjugation?
No, I'm not. I'm saying I'm asking you the question. The data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad. It was evil. But what happened? Something changed. They committed less crimes. And yet black America is poorer, more murderous, more dangerous.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got raped, and she was going to give birth and she would, and she was going to give birth and she was going to live, would you want her to go through that and carry her baby? That's awfully graphic. But it's a real life scenario that happens to many people. The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered. George Floyd, that was overdosing on drugs, right? That also, did you know that what Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd was actually in the police manual training? It was completely justified and was trained by his superiors to do.
The big question isn't whether Charlie Kirk should be mourned. The real question is, can you demand empathy when you never offered it? Many are calling his death karma. Not in a mystical sense, but in a logical one. If you spread enough hatred, eventually it comes back. Others argue that even now, we should show compassion, because that's what separates us from the ideology he pushed. But that raises another debate. Is empathy infinite, or does it run out when abused? And what message do we send if we keep offering it to those who built their lives mocking it? These are the uncomfortable questions that his death has forced onto the table. Questions America can't ignore anymore.
I actually want to say something about this. If you're going to spread hateful shit and you're going to incite, you're going to target marginalized groups of people, don't be all, oh my God, I've been shot. I won't get shot because I don't do that. I don't have to worry about that. I don't feel bad for him. I don't feel bad for his wife. I feel bad for his daughter. He did that to himself. You want to talk about all this crazy shit? Don't act crazy when other people are going to fucking come and shoot you.
So I have just one general question. Do you think your life should be in danger for having an opinion?
If it targets marginalized groups of people, yes, you are spreading hateful speech. It's not like I have an opinion about if I like ketchup or mustard. No, you're talking about people of groups, marginalized people. Those are hateful. That is hateful speech. If someone went and killed Hitler, why do you think they killed him?
Well, he not only advertised for mass genocide, but he literally made people kill people. I understand.
Do you think Charlie Kirk doesn't have viewpoints that are like...
So I don't think Charlie Kirk was in charge of a government and said, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to starve you to death.
He should have been shot. I'm not ever going to celebrate someone being shot. But don't go around and... Okay, he has a fan base of people that back him up and back these crazy viewpoints, and then these viewpoints are seen as normal. They're seen as normalized when they shouldn't be. And in that way, that makes him that bad. To promote things like that, to promote the shit he says about rape and abortion, and I just saw this video where he said the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. Get out of here. Anybody that says shit like that, I don't care what happens.
Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous, there was less break-ins. Why is that? And the data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened?
A certain skin color now gets their own summertime celebration. Oh, wow, look how far blacks have come. It has now become a racial complaining day. Remember what BLM stands for: burn, loot, and murder.
Yeah, DEI stands for
one of the biggest.
Didn't earn it, just so we're clear.
Can we also acknowledge, due to the laws under Jim Crow, that black people were significantly hindered from economic advancement?
This is a really important question. The data shows not really. Black Americans are poorer today in 2024 than they were in the 1950s. The disappearance of the black father has been the #1 driver of black poverty in this country. We at least agree that black dads not being around is a bad thing.
Anyone's father not being around is a bad thing. Starting in the 1980s and continuing onward, there's been a war on drugs. Is this correct?
I like the war on drugs. Blacks commit more crimes than whites do. They commit more murders, they commit more arsons, they commit more kidnappings. That's not a war on drugs, that's a culture problem. Why are so many blacks committing murders outside of their population? So we've spent $20 trillion on uplifting black communities, $20 trillion, and black Americans are poor. Food stamps, subsidized housing, Medicaid, public schooling, subsidized college. We're talking about $20 trillion that has been spent on the Great Society, and yet black America is poorer, more murderous, more dangerous.
Part of
what
equity
does equity mean?
is
You mean taking
allowed...
from other people?
At the end of the day, Charlie Kirk is just one man, but his story is America's story. A nation where white supremacy thrives on double standards, where empathy is rationed, and where violence, whether physical or rhetorical, always leaves a mark. His death is being treated by some as justice, by others as tragedy, and by many as nothing at all. But it forces us to confront something deeper. America doesn't know how to heal because America doesn't know how to empathize equally. Until that changes, the cycle of selective mourning, selective outrage, and selective justice will keep spinning. So, what do we do with this moment? You don't have to mourn Charlie Kirk. You don't have to celebrate him either. But you do have to think about what kind of world we're building. Are we going to keep living in a cycle of hate and reaction, or are we finally going to learn that empathy has to extend beyond people who look like us, love like us, or vote like us? That's the challenge. That's the work. Because if we don't do it, Charlie Kirk's legacy of division will outlive him. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Adios.